United States and China is expected to dominate conversations at the BRICS Summit. Market leaders and banking CEOs from various BRICS nations have met to discuss how member states can manage the risks of de-globalisation and protectionism. Our reporter Mbali Mthethwa attended that meeting in Sandton. Let's cross to her now. Mbali, what exactly came out of those discussions?
Okay. Hi, Bongani. A lot came out of these discussions. We had the chairman of the Bank of China, who spoke about how globalization has helped the bank. He spoke about how China has benefited from globalization, and Trump's utterances on imposing tariff increases, basically tariffs on steel and aluminium products, has actually sparked conversations about de-globalization and possibly protectionist policies. And right now we had banking leaders speaking about how South Africa can prepare itself for downside risks that will come with the de-globalization. However, we know Trump's policies have actually sparked a lot of conversation around the world. They've actually also spooked global markets. We've had financial markets also reacting to all of this. The whole incident has actually sent jitters around the world. But to tell us more about this and how South Africa can prepare itself for all these jitters and all these downward risks, I am joined by Dr. Martyn Davies from... Hi, Dr. Davies.
Hi, Mbali. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Anyway, you know what? Let me just go straight into the interview and ask you, how can South Africa prepare itself for the downside risks that will come with de-globalization?
Well, undoubtedly this is of concern. This is a major topic, the major topic of conversations, both at a sort of bilateral level, think China, South Africa today, and a BRICS level, multilateral level this week. We don't want to become collateral damage to this growing trade spat, skirmish, potentially trade war, ultimately, arguably, geoeconomic conflict between the United States and China. We need to offset this risk. Multilateral, managed, predictable global trade regimes are positive for all of us. Undoubtedly, it's underpinned the success of China in the last generation or so. And South Africa's case, likewise. We need to ensure the integrity of the global trading system. It's in all our interest to do so.
And BRICS has been set to be a solution to this anti-protectionism, protectionism, and as a future going forward in terms of globalization. Please tell us more about that.
Well, BRICS has always been a loose alliance of emerging market countries. I often say we don't quite know what we're not, i.e. Western economies, but we don't quite know what we are. And ironically, it's taken Donald Trump, for better or for worse, to create the increasingly the sort of common interest. And the common interest is around rising protectionism. How do we counter that? So this is sort of starting to become a very strong common interest among all BRICS this week, and it's arguably creating a counterblock to the likes of a G7, G20 to an extent, but traditional interests and how emerging countries are becoming more aligned around the trade issue. Ironically, because in previous BRICS summits, trade really has been off the agenda. No one really, Brazil, South Africa, India, Russia, have not been real proponents of free trade at all, but all of a sudden now we seek to protect the multilateral, liberalized, predictable trading regime. Slightly ironic.
Tell me more. Tell me about the Africa Free Trade Agreement that we've just signed. How can the rest of Africa benefit from BRICS nations, coming together and actually globalizing and becoming a solution to this protectionist policies that are coming up from the West?
Well, of course, our biggest challenge in our continent is lack of intra-regional trade. There is a region that trades less with itself and us, and that's the Middle East, largely because of the single commodity nature of their economies, i.e. oil. In our case, how do we encourage and spur intra-regional trade? This ultimately, a rising trade ultimately lifts all developmental boats or economic boats, so to speak. I think we've had this since the end of March. We had the AU Summit in Kigali, Rwanda, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement being proposed. That's a sweeping, free, liberalized trade agenda regime for the entire continent. Of course, not everyone is signing. South Africa's been, we're getting there. Nigeria's been somewhat reluctant. Rwanda, amongst other landlocked economies, have been very very strong proponents of it. The conversation this week is how do we start to see this liberalized regional trade agendas, think SADC, think EAC, East African Community, think COMESA, the Common Market for East and Southern Africa, and ultimately the African-Continental Free Trade Agreement. How do we start to use that increased sort of scalability we're getting of market alignment, arguably integration, ultimately to increase our negotiating position vis-a-vis global trade regimes. From a BRICS perspective, how do we align the BRICS trading interests, if we can, to our own regional trading interests, and how do we speak hopefully with one voice vis-a-vis this rising trend of protectionism coming out of the US currently, which ultimately it is, as you allude to, threatens this new trend, this mega trend arguably of de-globalisation. We've seen rapid globalisation since 1989, the end of the Cold War, and now I'm afraid we're in reverse gear. This is deeply concerning to all of us.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. It's back to you in studio, Bongani.
Thank you so much, Mbali Mthethwa. Mbali Mthethwa out in Sandton. Of course, it is a buzz, and certainly tomorrow is where it will certainly kick off in earnest. Around 2 p.m. is the official start of that BRICS Summit as well, the 10th edition of that. Now, ahead of that